Coming up on a special edition of Winthrop's My One Story, we sit down with the architect of Winthrop Athletics, the school's first basketball coach, Neil Gordon. It's been nearly 4 decades since he first set foot in Rock Hill, and today he resides in Anderson, South Carolina. It's My One Story, Coach Neil Gordon.
I came to Winthrop in 1977 from Newberry College, where I was the #1 team in the nation when I was at Newberry, and 5 players came with me, so I had a built-in team when I got there. But we didn't play basketball that first year. We sat out, and I had a graduate assistant coach, and Frank Snyder, who was living in Rock Hill. He happened to be the Newberry graduate. We split the first team into 2 teams. They played in the City League in Rock Hill, and then they went together and they won the state championship for the recreation department. We had 15 players on that first year's team, and we had about 4 or 5 walk-ons. And Benny Bennett, Rick Reese, Ronnie and Donnie Kramer, and Dave Hampton all came from Newberry to go to Winthrop. We were accepted, but we weren't accepted like I thought we would be because of being the first men on campus. They actually put my team up on the first floor of the girls' dormitory, which they liked that a lot. And we practiced in Withers Gym, and we played some practice games that first year. But then when we scheduled our first year, 1978-79, we won 25 games that first year, and that was the most wins of any college campus or any school that had started up that year. So, and we played at Sullivan Junior High School, and we had a big crowd, had a lot of townspeople, and a lot of students came to the games. When we played out there, we had a full house every time we played. So I had the backing of the first players, and then we had recruited 5 other players, and then we had 5 walk-ons. And we had very good, and all those 15 players, one of the things I was most proud about, they all stayed at Winthrop and graduated over the next 4 years. And we played, at that time, Jimmy, they had 17 teams in the NAIA District 6. We were #1 in the District 6 that first year, and we got beat by 1 point by Lander College at Lander College, and we didn't make the NAIA tournament that year. And but we had 2 of those players, Benny Bennett and Rick Reese, were in the Hall of Fame. Ronnie Donnie Kramer, their numbers were retired and hung on the wall in the Eagles Club, and the Eagles Club did that for them at the time. They're not in the Hall of Fame, and I would like to make a play for them to be put into the Hall of Fame, and I've tried for years to get them to be a member of the Hall of Fame and never quite understand why they didn't get in the Hall of Fame. So I hope that someday that they will become in the Hall of Fame.
But the basketball program saw growth in many other ways with the construction of a new home arena and being a charter member of a new conference that would compete on the NCAA level.
Well, we played at Sullivan for 5 years, and then they built the Winthrop Coliseum, and it was probably the nicest small college gymnasium or coliseum. And actually, too, another thing too, they wanted to name it a field house, and I said, no, we don't want to name it the field house. Let's call it a Coliseum. And along about the 6th year I was there, the Big South was beginning to form, and it was formed by Charleston Southern and Baptist College at the time, and Augusta College, believe it or not, and Armstrong State. They were the original members, and Campbell University. So we met out at Furman, and they wanted to name it the Piedmont Athletic Conference, and I said, let's name it the Big South, and it stuck. And so that's how the name came, was the Big South after that meeting there. So we played in the Big South the first year that they had it, and we were on our probation years to go to the Big South or go to the NCAA. And the next year, Winthrop was a member of the Big South full time and the NCAA, and I think that was one of the highlights of my career while I was there, and because we had played some Division I schools. We beat Campbell University, and we beat Augusta College, and we beat Armstrong State, and they were already in the Big South, and we were not. We were still playing NAIA basketball.
However, Gordon was very impactful in developing other parts of the school's athletic department beyond the men's basketball team.
Well, I'll tell you, Jimmy, one of the things that it really means to me is that being the athletic director and just a basketball coach before, when I was at Newberry, the first person that I hired was a trainer, and that was for all the teams, and I was hoping that the women's team, and they didn't have a full-time women's basketball coach at the time. So that was the second thing that I did, was for them to hire, or for us to hire, a full-time basketball coach. And something that's really interesting, when we got there on campus, I bought shoes, or the college bought shoes for the men's basketball program, and they all got upset because the women they had to buy their own shoes. And I said, look, you got a budget, you buy them shoes. So they started buying them shoes, and they started playing double hitters with us at the time. So I thought that would a step in the right direction. Also, the second person I hired was a sports publicity, Andy Solomon, who did such a great job promoting both the men and women's teams. My second year there, I hired Horace Tuberville from Newberry, who was the baseball coach. He was the assistant athletic director, and he was the Eagle Club director, and did all our promotional work. And they won an NAIA championship, and we started giving scholarships to men's soccer. When we went into the NCAA, at the time, you had to have 4 men's teams and 4 women's teams to give scholarships to. And so we had basketball, soccer, baseball, and golf for the men, and the women had basketball, softball, and basketball for the women, and golf. And so really the whole program started building up a lot at the time. And when I left there, we were drawing 3,500 people in the Coliseum. And we had at the Coliseum, we had the Globetrotters came in and played. We had several music groups to come in to play, and wrestlers came in there. So we tried to use the Coliseum for a lot of events at that time.
And although it's been 31 years since he stepped away from the sidelines, the coach has never lost his connection to the school that took a chance on him.
Well, I have a lot of friends there, and a lot of teachers that I know they're not there now. Joe Nichols was the photographer, and Andy Solomon was the sports information director, and there was just a lot of people there that I know, and the college was really beginning to grow. At the time when I went there in 1977, there was 4,000 women and 100 men. So now I guess it's pretty much equal now, men and women, and I think all that happened back in those days really helped bring the men into the campus, and basketball was something that helped men all the bad feelings that they had, and there was some about it was a women's college, it was all women, and but they treated us okay, and I loved it and hated to leave. Really, I would have liked to have stayed on and coached. I knew I had to give up one of the jobs, and Steve Asindak was hired as the athletic director, and I stayed on 1 year as the basketball coach, and we were full-time NCAA Division I. I knew then that I had to resign because I did not want a 12-month contract. I had 2 daughters that graduated from Winthrop, and my oldest daughter started one of the dance groups there. I don't know if they still have that dance group or not, but she started that dance group, and both of them graduated in education and were teachers after that, and so I do have some connections with one of them. I have been back over there to all the events that they had for my basketball players, and then some 10 years ago, my first team, we met over there at the Money, and there was all 15 of them came back for a party that night, and they never did get to play in the Coliseum. But when this is another interesting thing, when I had a picture of the Coliseum, I used that and told everybody that that's where they're going to get to play, but they didn't get to play till 5 years later. And it is a beautiful Coliseum.
Now in his 80s, Gordon has had much time to reflect on all that he accomplished in building what has become a strong mid-major athletic program on the national level, but like a true leader, he gives all the credit to the players who got the job done on the court, in the classroom, and in life.
Well, what I would like for my legacy to be is that all of my players that I coached graduated, and they have great ties to the school. If something's going on at Winthrop right now involves some of those players that played from 1977 to 1986, they'll be there. And they just, Benny Bennett, who was one of the finest guards I ever had, passed away not too long ago, and they just retired his number, put his picture, put his shirt in there, and I'm very proud of that. And I think the other thing too is that I try to treat everybody like I like to be treated, and I still get calls from a lot of our players to this day. From some of our players that started out way back in the 60s, on my birthday, they still call me. Matter of fact, I had a call from Tim Raxter last night, who called me and just to talk to me, and he does that a lot. Dave Hampton calls me, Roddy calls me, Donnie calls me, and so that makes you feel good when your players do that, because basketball is one thing, but going out in this world as their own person and having a job, having families, means an awful lot to me.